always say that special needs parenting, especially when you're parenting a child with severe disabilities, it is a war. You have to go to war as a parent because everywhere you go, you are fighting for your child who cannot fight for themselves.
Welcome to Mama Mabel's Caregivers podcast, a space where real caregiving stories are honored and resilience is nurtured through honest conversation. Today's episode is titled Motherhood, Chinese Medicine and Rare Disorders, How Dr. Chloe Weber Built Her Own Path. We're joined by Dr. Chloe Weber, a doctor of Chinese medicine, herbal formulator, and devoted mother to her son Remy, who lives with a rare genetic disorder. Caregiving is not a chapter of Dr. Chloe's life, it's the center of it. She knows the long nights, the constant advocacy, the emotional weight, and the reality of building a life without an off switch. Through Chinese herbal medicine, sustainable routines, and deep personal resilience, Dr. Chloe has created a path that supports both her son's complex needs and her own well being as a caregiver. Her story is one of innovation, honesty, and strength, offering hope to caregivers navigating rare diagnoses and chronic conditions. If you've ever wondered how to care deeply for someone you love without losing yourself in the process, this conversation will speak to your heart. Let's get into it. Welcome, Dr. Chloe Weber. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you? It's such an honor to be here.
Yes, same. I am so grateful to have you on Mama Mabel's Caregivers podcast on today. All right, so podcast family. You know what I say? It's going to be another dynamic conversation. I'm incredibly excited to have Dr. Chloe Weber on as a guest. She is a doctor specializing in Chinese medicine. In addition to that, she's a mother of a child that has a unique disease that she'll be talking about that as well as a caregiver. Today's episode is Motherhood, Chinese Medicine, and Rare Disorders, How Dr. Chloe Weber Built Her Own Path. With that said, podcast families, let's get directly into it. All right, so Dr. Chloe Weber, please tell me about yourself.
Thank you for the intro. Let's see, where do I start? I am Dr. Chloe Weber. I'm a doctor of Chinese medicine. And as you mentioned, I have a son named Remy who is 11 and a half, and he has a rare genetic disorder called STXBP1. So I always joke that you're screwed when your kid's genetic disorder is named after the gene that's mutated because the doctors know absolutely nothing about his disorder, which was good for me because I already was a doctor of Chinese medicine when he was born. And so it allowed me to really dive into my medicine and alternative medicine, biohacking, all sorts of different fun, nerdy things, and find the ways that I could support him best outside of the typical Western paradigm. But as a caregiver, it is a journey not only for him, but for me, since I've been a solo mom with him since he was 1. So it is a lot of work, a lot of evolution as a human, and a lot of resilience. So it's been a wild ride, and it's luckily been a lot of fun as well. So I'm really grateful for him. He's really amazing.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Tell me this, when was your son diagnosed?
So when he was going on 10, 11 months old, he started getting referred to early intervention and then referred to genetics and neurology. So we knew that something was going on around them. I even remember when he was like 3 or 4 months old, Googling and being like, he's not really smiling or laughing. But I just kept being like, oh, he's just at the end of the bell-shaped curve. He's fine. He's just a slothy, chill baby. But so we started going to genetics and neurology around when he was around 1, started doing different tests and whatnot, started to go to all the specialists. but he wasn't diagnosed until he was about 2.5. And so he was significant. He is significantly delayed. He's cognitively closer to a 1 or a 2-year-old, despite being almost 12. He's got Parkinsonian like tremors, epilepsy. He's nonverbal, the whole nine. But so at that point, he still wasn't even crawling yet when he was diagnosed at 2.5. So it was shocking to get the diagnosis. I wasn't expecting something that was going to be that severe, but also it was relieving to understand that there was something that had gone on, or that there was something going on, because it's scary and overwhelming when you have no idea what's happening with your baby.
So you're saying that you first started noticing signs around the 2, 3 month mark because he wasn't like smiling or perhaps cooing a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. And so once that happened, that's when you started taking him to the doctor?
At that age, they're going to the doctor all the time. So I remember bringing up a couple of things and the doctors just waved it away. I was concerned about seizures. They ignored me. And now, as a mom who's been an advocate also for quite a while, there's no ignoring me at this stage in my journey. But at that point, as a new mom who was postpartum and had never even changed a diaper before I had Remy, I just assumed the doctors knew what they were talking about. But then as time went on and his developmental lapse between where he was supposed to be and where he was became more and more evident, then they started referring us out to more and more doctors and to get more and more services.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that you really had to advocate for your son and continue to advocate until you were heard. Is that correct?
I had to advocate. Then it was more, I had no idea it was going to be anything this significant. I would say the advocacy comes in after his diagnosis more, because then it's pushing for keeping him off of medications that are slowing his development further. Then it pushes for getting him the appropriate supports in school, getting him to be seen as a human being in a society that looks as people with disabilities as less than. The amount of hate and comments that I've gotten on my social media saying that my son's disabilities are my fault, or that he shouldn't be basically alive, or that I should have aborted. The amount of things that I have heard or that people have said to me is astonishing. And so I always say that special needs parenting, especially when you're parenting a child with severe disabilities, it is a war. You have to go to war as a parent, because everywhere you go, you are fighting for your child who cannot fight for themselves. And a lot of people think that the hardest part of being a special needs parent is caretaking for your kid, and that's hard. Like, my son is a full needs kid. It's exhausting. I'm a full-time solo mom caregiver. It is definitely exhausting, but the hardest part for me is having to constantly advocate and having a child who is living in a world that is not made for him and that sees him as largely as a burden at best, whereas he is the most magical human I've ever met. So the advocacy is unending. But it was the doctors who were recommending that we started getting further testing when he was really young. I had no idea that he was as delayed or that things were as significant as they ended up being. I don't think they realized that at that point either, though.
That's interesting and also heartbreaking that people would bully you and say these things on social media.
I say it to my face too.
Your face? They say it
Oh
to
yeah.
your face?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so how do you handle that?
I'm pretty good at talking a good game after the fact. I think in the moment I'm often just so shocked that I just like smile and nod and walk away. I've gotten better at responding a little bit more. It depends on what's going on. I'm trying to think of some good examples. Yeah, it's always just shocking to me, no matter how many times it happens, when somebody asks you basically in front of your child, because I'm always with him, would you have gotten an abortion if you knew your life is my worst nightmare? People just say the darndest things. And like, I try and have compassion and empathy that like, people don't understand what it's like to be a caregiver of a child with special needs unless they're a caregiver of a child with special needs. And that goes for being a caregiver of anybody. Nobody really understands how all encompassing and exhausting caregiving is until you actually do it. And so that's particularly true when it comes to being a parent of special needs. And I know that perhaps I wouldn't have been aware of how challenging or how magical it is to have a child with special needs until I lived this life. And so I try and have empathy and awareness of the fact that there are a lot of populations in our society that I don't understand the struggle that they're going through or the magic that they're going through in their lives either. And so I try and have empathy for the fact that I get things wrong also. But sometimes my Brooklyn comes out and it's not pretty. I often walk around restaurants and I'll be like, he's not a T-Rex. It's not contagious. My friend Heather just dies while I'm doing it. I'm like, it just gets exhausting with the stairs sometimes. Like most of the time I can work through it, but sometimes I just can't help myself.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you experienced that. Generally speaking, what I've come to learn is that people, they criticize things that they don't understand, and they stare at things as well that they don't understand. So, Chloe, understanding how it feels to go through that type of bullying and stares and etc. For the podcast family that's listening who may have a child that's neurodivergent or a child with a rare disorder, what type of advice can you share for them to help?
I'm not sure that I'm the best role model for this, but I can't say it gets easier. You get more used to it. I think for me, one of the things that I've started doing is if it's a child that's staring at Remy, I will try and include the parent and the child and ask if the child has any questions about Remy so that they can feel like they can talk to us and engage with us. And I try and include the parent that's with them as well, because I also don't know I don't have a neurotypical child, so I don't know what a kid understands at what ages or how best to communicate that to somebody else's child. So you can try and help educate and empower. And it's unfortunate that it has to be our job on top of the many jobs that we already have, but trying to be open to questions and also just protect yourself and your energy as much as possible. It's really hard and it can be really exhausting. I can't pretend that I haven't bullied children or adults when they've stared at Remy too much. It's really hard. And it's really hard when you're watching your child being bullied or ostracized or stared at, pointed at all day, every day, anytime you go out into public.
I'm sorry to hear that. Podcast family, speak up. If you see something, say something. If you are walking by and you see someone who's giving a nasty look or is being mean, speak up, because you never know. Your voice matters. And as it pertains to, yeah, like children, especially children, I'll tell you this, one of my best friends, my very first best friend actually, has cerebral palsy. I was a little girl. I was about 4. I want to say he was maybe about 5 or 6 years older than me. And he had a really bad case of it. So he was like, his body was really twisted and etc. And he had a speech impediment. At the time, I also had a speech impediment. And I would take my Cabbage Patch doll, because I was a child of the 80s. And I would always sit on his porch. We were the best of friends. I understood him, he understood me. We just talked. And I never saw him as being different. I just saw him as my friend. From that standpoint, since I was a child, I always spoke up when I saw people mistreating others. As an adult, I will continue to speak up if I see someone mistreating, especially a child, because there's no place for that. What I've come to learn is that because we exist, we matter. Because we exist, on a grand scheme of things, that means something a lot greater has called us into existence. With that said, no one has the right to mistreat anyone.
No.
We equally, everybody who exists, everyone equally matters. So keep that in mind, podcast family. And if you see something, say something.
I just want to add, like, I know that the kind faces and the people who want to show support to me and to my son are many more than the people who are staring and pointing and saying horrible things. It's just hard when our nervous systems are trained to look for the danger, and that feels like direct danger to my child. So I know, and I so appreciate the people who hold the door open for me and Remy while he's in his wheelchair, or who try and say hi to him, or reach out in some sort of way. It means the world to me, and a lot of people do that. It's just that the people who are hateful and or mean, those stick out a lot more in your memory, whether you want to or not. But I think the message of looking out for everybody and the value in every human is something that we need to remember, not only when it comes to caregiving, but obviously in the wild world that we are currently living in right now. It's important to take care of our neighbors and do what we can to love and support each other, because we all need that.
Yes, very well said. So, on the day to day, as a caregiver, what does your life look like? What's your routine include?
So Remy's a full needs kid and he has 5 million food allergies. So a lot of cooking. Everything he eats, his diet is like one of my main therapeutic tools for him. So everything he eats is very clean. It's gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free, soy-free, nut-free, blah, 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 as organic as possible, home cooked. So a lot of cooking, a lot of cleaning. He is an 11-year-old in diapers who eats more than like most 200-pound men. So cooking, cleaning. And I mean, I have a lot of dance parties. That's one of the things that I think has been most helpful for my mental health over the past years. We got a giant party speaker and listened to like very inappropriate 90s hip hop. And Remy's really big on Bad Bunny and Robin right now, which I think my mountain man neighbors are really happy about. But so we have dance parties a lot of the time, and I think that really helps me in terms of if I'm hitting my wall and I'm like, I don't have anything left to give. I've been playing bubbles with you and doing OT and speech for over a decade now, and I'm burnt out. Like, I am burnt out. I probably will always be burnt out to whatever level, but like throwing on some good music and having a dance party always helps. But yeah, Remy's in school. When he's in school, oddly, it just seems to never exist. I don't know if you have kids, but they're just never in school. So when he's not in school, he's with me. And we do a lot of swimming and just different activities that are going to help him move his body and feel his body and get integrated as much as possible.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you do that. So, you have a routine, and part of your routine is listening to music, dancing, and just enjoying the moment with your.
Yeah, so when he was diagnosed 2.5, I spent the next 4 years driving myself crazy, doing every therapy possible. So there's a program called the Family Hope Center. They give you like a 4-hour intensive program that you do at home. So I had a 15-foot ramp in my living room that I was making him army crawl down, making him do smells, all sorts of different things through their program. Then I was taking him to Ecuador twice a year. So I found a neurologist down there who was doing hyperbaric oxygen, ozone therapy, all sorts of different really cool stuff. So we went there 6 times. So 6 months down in Guayaquil, Ecuador, which I love Ecuador, but Guayaquil is not the nicest of cities, like, especially for a kid in a stroller. It's just very hard. And then, I have a hyperbaric chamber in my bedroom. We've done pretty much everything humanly possible. And then I finally hit a wall and I was like, okay, he's walking now. He's happy. He has a neurodegenerative deadly disorder. Do I want to spend all my time fighting for the next inch stone, which is what we call it in rare genetic disorders? We're not looking for a milestone. We're looking for just every little inch that we can get. But it was, do I keep pushing me and him to get that next inch stone, or do I just focus on having as much fun with my child as I possibly can, knowing that every day is a gift with him? And so that's really how I've shifted my mindset. Not that we don't do therapies and I don't offer opportunities for healing and growth. The focus really is just how can we enjoy each other as much as possible.
That's beautiful. So focusing on the present. Yes, yes. Okay. So tell me this. You are a doctor of Chinese medicine and know that you have incorporated some of that along your journey and also for your son. I like to talk about that. How did you start and how did you begin to develop various medications for both you and your son?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of owning businesses, but I'll do it if it means that there's something that I need done in the world that's not being done the way I want it. I'm a very stubborn person. But so when Remy was diagnosed with STXBP1, they also diagnosed him with intractable epilepsy. So intractable epilepsy means that it's epilepsy that doesn't respond well to Western medicine. And Western meds for epilepsy can be really dangerous as well. They have a ton of side effects and they're pretty addictive to the brain. If you try and get off of them, they're incredibly hard to get off of them. So I really wanted to focus on herbal medicine and started studying CBD for its therapeutic effects for epilepsy, which Charlotte's Web really brought to the limelight with their case with Charlotte Figge, who was just a legend and somebody who I really respect and appreciate, her and her family. But the CBD was really fascinating in terms of its effects on the brain and how it's working in the body to calm the nervous system, regulate the brain, downregulate the vagus nerve, and get everything in a place where seizures were dramatically reduced with full spectrum hemp. And so there are a lot of really cool research studies showing how it's working. But in Chinese medicine, what we do is we use multiple herbs together to create dynamic formulas that address not only the presenting symptoms, so in this case, seizures, but the underlying patterns of disharmony underneath them. So I have always been, most people who go to Chinese medicine school in the United States are focused on acupuncture. It's much more popular than herbal medicine. For me, I've always been obsessed with the herbal medicine, which is really the backbone of Chinese medicine if you go to China and study there. It's really customizable pharmaceuticals based on the wisdom of nature, which is always going to be the wisdom of pharmaceuticals. So it's so incredibly safe and dynamic. So basically, long story short, I wrote a formula to address Remy's seizures with Chinese herbs, combined it with full spectrum CBD hemp, started cooking it for him in my slow cooker in my kitchen, and it dramatically reduced his seizures, his Parkinsonian-like tremors, and got him sleeping, which meant that for the first time in years, I was also sleeping as well. And so once I got that going, I tried to get some other companies to pick up the formulas. I was like, I don't even care about being paid. I just want this done and out for people in the right way. And when nobody responded, I finally just stomped my feet and made the product line myself and then expanded it to other products that are going to help with energy, with sleep, anxiety, digestion, some of the common things that we're seeing in our society today as well. Remy's formula is called Remy's Revenge, and because we're a little feisty. And the rest of the products are really amazing. And I really can say that they have helped me tremendously with my stress levels as well. So I'm really grateful to have those products also.
That's amazing. I love that. Absolutely love it. As it pertains to the medication that you created, is it available for others who may want to incorporate that?
Yeah, Remy's Revenge. In Chinese medicine, we look at that. We look at epilepsy, MS, even like Tourette's, anything where there's a tic, a tremor. We look at that as what we call a wind disorder. So, as a doctor of Chinese medicine, I can't say that I treat any Western diagnosis whatsoever. That would be illegal and inappropriate. But we do treat wind disorders, which often manifest as these Western diagnoses. So what it's doing is it's calming the mind and bringing the energy back into the body. So I have had customers and clients who have had any of those disorders, the Western pathology, that have have responded really powerfully with our formula Remy's Revenge, which is available on radicalrootsherbs.com. The challenging thing with neurological disorders is that a lot of people, especially if you have seizures, are already on a pharmaceutical cocktail to manage those symptoms. And so CBD does interact with multiple pharmaceuticals. So you have to make sure that you're doing it appropriately and working with your doctor or prescribing practitioner, whoever's going with it. But so Remy's Revenge is available on Radical Roots, and then our other favorites are like people love our topical, which is for pain relief, and then the Rest and Relax is like everybody's jam. Like I have people who just drink a whole bottle of it.
I love that. So MS, that refers to multiple sclerosis. Is that correct? Okay. So you have something for that as well, you were saying?
It's the same presentation as Remy's Revenge in Chinese medicine. So MS is also considered what we would call a wind disorder. Remy's Revenge is really a formula for most neurological disorders that I would see, would be the way I would look at that one.
Okay. What about Chinese medicine solutions for premenopause?
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
In a similar vein, so Remy and I were renting a house in Boulder, which is where we live, and we had mold, radon, and carbon monoxide poisoning, which was leading to him hysterically screaming all day, every day, and scratching me, and me having very intense anxiety, which is not something I'm prone to, thankfully, and not being able to sleep whatsoever. So I kept being like, am I being poisoned or am I in perimenopause? What's happening now? And so between that and the push of society finally looking into women's health and starting to put women's health at the forefront, which I always say is fascinating because we made every human on this planet. And so now women's health is finally something that people are looking at. But Chinese medicine is the most dynamic way to support women's health that I have ever seen. I've treated so many women who were struggling with all sorts of hormonal based disorders, whether it's endometriosis, perimenopause, menopause, fertility. And again, we're not treating those disorders, but I'm treating people who are dealing with those disorders and helping support their symptoms. So Chinese medicine is just such a beautiful way to dynamically support women's hormones in a way that Western medicine really doesn't understand. Western medicine looks at women's health and health overall like a mechanic looks at a car. You can just replace this, you can just move this. The reality of the system is that the body is an ecosystem and it needs to be supported dynamically as such. And Chinese medicine really does a beautiful job of doing that. So I ultimately created Noxi Herbs, Noxi, which is a system of 4 different herbal formulas that are recommended based on your specific pattern in Chinese medicine. So women can go to noxiherbs.com and take the quiz on there and it'll tell you what you should be taking. Most women are taking one formula for the first half of your month after you've bled, and then a different one for the second half of the month, because fundamentally we're supporting different hormones. Right after your cycle, estrogen is rising for those next 2 weeks and then depletes, and then after that progesterone is rising. So it makes no sense from the lens of Chinese medicine or even Western medicine to take the same hormonal based formula every day of the month. And so that's why I tried to create a line that really mimics and honors the body's natural cycles and honors the real way that we do Chinese medicine. Because if I was seeing a patient one-to-one, I would definitely have them change their formulas halfway through the month or every week of the month, depending on what was going on.
There's a wide array of just various medications that you offer, and also medications through Chinese medicine that you have been able to incorporate for your son as well as for yourself, as well as for anxiety, you stated. Podcast family, to have Dr. Chloe Weber on sharing this information is a jewel. These are jewels that we are sharing with you because not only is she a person who is currently experiencing being a caregiver, she has also created medicine through her background as a doctor in Chinese medicine to help her son and also help many of us, no matter what path that we're on. So I highly recommend that you check out her website. Her website is called radicalremedy.org. Again, that's radicalremedy.org. I will ensure to have in the description of the podcast everywhere it is listed. So you'll have that information. Dr. Chloe, is there a way for people to get in contact with you for further information?
Yeah, if you have any questions, or also just so you know, I do give a 40% off coupon code, a 40% off discount to anybody who has a disability and anybody who is a primary caregiver of somebody with a disability. I don't ask for any evidence. I just trust that hopefully people are going to do the right thing and not try and scam me. So if you have any questions, or if you would like to get that discount code, email me at Chloe, CHLOE, at radicalrootsherbs.com. So RADICAL, rootsherbs.com.
Yes, and podcast family, I assure you that I will also have this information in the description of the podcast regarding how to get in touch with Dr. Chloe Weber, because this is awesome information. And understanding that as a caregiver, you're on a unique journey. You may need some Chinese medicine that's natural that can help you. If you take out time to look in Dr. Chloe's background, just look at all of the natural various herbs that she has. See what she's showing? Like, that's awesome. So this is a doctor that knows her stuff and has also implemented it in her life as well as her son's life, and has even tried to get it out there. But don't get me started on the pharmaceutical industry, okay? I do have my own personal beliefs with that, not to taint anyone else's. However, I am one of those people that believes when it comes to a lot of ailments in this world, that there is a natural way to be able to help you and or resolve the issue that you have. And with our current pharmaceutical industry, that isn't something that is really looked upon and valued. So again, don't get me started on that. Okay. If you hear me, amen. You know what I'm saying.
That's right. No, I speak a lot to that. There's a lot of side effects of pharmaceuticals, and I think Western medicine has its place. But to me, it's, and we look at diet and lifestyle first. Can we look at energy work? Can we look at natural remedies? I just have a hard time believing that any human is going to come up with anything more brilliant than Mother Nature has. But that's been my experience as a practitioner also. I see these herbs change lives in so many amazing ways. And as you said, they've changed me and my son's life as well, which is why I struggle with small businesses to try and get the herbs out more, because it's worth it.
Thank you for that. And because this is something that Dr. Chloe is incredibly passionate about, you can hear it in her voice. For the podcast family who watches this on YouTube, you can also see it in her reflection as she speaks about it. This is something that's powerful. I highly recommend that you take out some time to do some back research on Chinese medicine and how that has helped people along the way, and that you also pay special attention to this podcast, because more than likely, Dr. Chloe Weber may have something special for you that may be able to help you out as well. So, with that said, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chloe. Is there anything else you would like to share with the podcast family?
Just keep doing what you're doing. Caregiving is one of the hardest jobs in the world. And as I said before, people don't understand it until they live it. And even if you're doing it imperfectly, we all are, you're doing it great. Take care of yourself as best as possible. I think that was my most hated phrase those first couple of years, was put your oxygen mask on first. But I learned after a lot of hard lessons that truly, especially as a parent of a child with disabilities, there's nothing more important to him than having a healthy and happy mom. And so taking care of yourself is essential. And if you have to gaslight yourself to do it so that you can take care of the person you're taking care of longer, then you go on and do that too. But thank you so much for the platform and for everything that you're doing to support other caregivers. It really means the world to me.
And thank you so much for that compliment. And podcast family, one more thing I would like to add on to that again. If you see something, say something, lead with compassion, be kind. If you see someone in a wheelchair or willing someone in a wheelchair, take out the time to open the door, smile and say hello, because that smile and that hello can mean a lot to a caregiver. You never know. So, with that said, podcast family, as always, thank you. And until next time.